meeting your customer where they are. One is from an awareness play. The other one's actually the conversion play, right? So when you think of meeting where they are, okay, they're on social, they're on Meta, they're scrolling on through their feed and they see an ad. Okay, are they becoming aware or learning more about the brand at the moment? Absolutely, right? Are they necessarily in the mode or mindset to buy at that moment? Maybe, maybe not. We're showing up on the thank you pages of every other one of the 1,000 brands in the Disco network. It's where that customer at that moment was making a purchase at another brand. They have their wallet out at that exact moment and are in the mindset to shop, right? This is where it's like, okay, meet them where they are. Okay, meet them where they are when they have their wallet out.
Welcome to the DTC Insider podcast, where online business owners come to find actionable tips and tactics to grow their businesses. Now, here's your host, Brian Roisentul.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the DTC Insider podcast. As always, I'm Brian Roisentul, host, and I'm super excited to have Neal Goyal back on the podcast. If you are in the commerce world and don't know who Neal is, well, it's someone to watch. Definitely. I've been following the guy forever on LinkedIn. He spent years helping brands launch and grow through mobile apps at Tapcart, and now he has recently joined Disco as the VP of Strategic Sales, and he continues there with his focus on helping brands unlock new revenue streams. So I know it's, right after Black Friday. I know you guys are with a lot of information right now, but believe me, if you know Neal, you know this will be a conversation that is worth listening to. Hey, Neal, thanks for being on the show.
Hey, Brian, thanks so much for having me. Thanks so much for the red carpet entrance and the kind words. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of yours, and I know we had a great chat the last time we jammed. So excited to have this conversation again.
Yeah, so you deserve it, man. I've been following you for a long time. To me, you were Tapcart, and I know you always develop your personal brand, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But to me, and I'm sure to many other people, you were Tapcart. I'm curious, I'm sure you got this question already 1,000 times, but what inspired you or what motivated you leave Tapcart and join Disco?
Wow, what a question. Yes, this definitely has been the most common question that I've received in the past 3 to 4 weeks. Why on earth did I choose to move over to another part of the D2C world, another part of e-com? And many people very much saw me as an evangelist of sorts for mobile applications, right? What inspired me to join Disco? And that's been a really common question. When you think about where I've spent my entire career, I spent my entire career in 2 areas, right? Number one, helping brands unlock more revenue, but not just any revenue that is profitable revenue. And that has really come in the form of the second part, and that is reducing customer acquisition costs. Everything I've done for a brand that I've worked with was in the lens of reducing customer acquisition costs and in the process driving more profitability. When we think about Disco and what drew me in, there are literally 12,415 software companies. They're all currently trying to go after and land as customers the same 3,000 to 5,000 brands. What is it about Disco that drew me specifically here was the concept of a truly alternative channel, something that I've had a lot of success evangelizing in the past, and then doing so in a way that is having a massive impact for every single brand that joins the platform and a meaningful reduction in customer acquisition in the process. And so it was just the concept of helping brands, something that I love doing. I love serving brands. I love living in their shoes, and to understand the impact that Disco is making and understanding where we are in that journey. We are only in the first inning of what is possible. That Disco is a data company that is learning more about customers than ever before from 1,000 brands on their network, driving the right kinds of customers on the post-purchase from other brands. And as a result, brands are seeing that not only are they able to reduce customer acquisition costs in that process, but they're also seeing the highest LTV from these customers. So, I preach LTV, combine that with lower cost of customer acquisition, and I feel like I've just landed in the most incredible place in order to help brands do that. Combine that with a team that is some of the kindest, most hardworking, humble individuals that I personally ever met. It just felt like a dream come true.
Amazing. And we were talking about it offline, before we record, and I find it interesting that, as we were saying, that these two companies represent channels that are not specifically conventional for brands, and both help them grow. So you are in one company helping them, build and grow their mobile app, and on the other one, you're helping them with everything else, with everything this co does, with getting revenue that they didn't expect from a channel that they didn't even know that existed. Probably most of them, right?
1,000%. I think everything I've done in my career and all advice I've given in e-com and to various brands, it's always been going against the grain, right? Going against the grain. For instance, with the mobile app channel, it was like, okay, how do you help a brand understand the value of taking a customer, their most loyal customer cohort, away from their website that they poured hundreds, if not millions, into, right? Move them away from the website and introduce them into the app channel. That is the supreme definition of a really hard cycle to convince the brand that that's the right thing to do. And then same thing, how do you take a brand who has had success on Meta, that has seen all of their revenue growth come from Meta, and then help them understand that, like, listen, Meta is not the only answer, right? Meta is not the end all be all, that there's other alternative acquisition solutions out there that can drive incremental revenue, that can drive incremental profit. And so, yes, I feel like I have been an evangelist for alternative channels.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
I think it all sums up in the following, again, you said this before the record as well, and it's that you need to meet people where they are, in this case, customers. And I know Jimmy Kim personally. I didn't have the pleasure, but I know him, from LinkedIn, and I had the pleasure of interviewing here on the pod, John Roman, the other co-host of Awesome. He actually presented the Awesome pod before launching it here on the pod as well. So I had an amazing chat with John Roman. And one thing Jimmy Kim, I believe, said in one of the amazing, or I would say awesome episodes they have on the pod. It's a very, I respect that podcast a lot because I really get a lot of golden nuggets from it, is that, of course, you should meet people where they are, but he went further. He said, imagine in a few years from now, it will feel old. You take people to your website so they can buy. If they're watching a TV show, for example, probably they can go ahead and buy something, an item they are seeing right on the TV show, right? Right away to get them out of that experience, take them to your website only to convert there. Doesn't it feel old already, right? So this is kind of the same thing, right? Taking customers from their current experience and taking them to conversions directly.
That's so spot on, right? When we think about commerce, as much as e-commerce has made up such a growing segment of overall sales that are taking place across the world, it is kind of in a very, almost like it's a lagging type of environment in terms of the strategies that brands are deploying, right? You remember those days where it's like, oh, I didn't need a website because my brand or my company is in the phone book, in the yellow book, right? Yellow pages, right? Like that was a thing before, right? Why do I even need a website? And then same thing, it's like, okay, why do I need a different place to transact? I mean, like at the end of the day, we are looking to our website for everything. When you look at most websites though, as much as Shopify has done in an incredible way to support brands in launching those sites, if that is the sole and lone way that you're giving your customer the ability to transact, you're kind of limiting yourself, right? This is why there's been so much diversification to Amazon. This is why there's been diversification to, CTV and other channels that are performing. Because again, meeting your customer where they are is incredibly important. I think that's the number one thing when I think about that concept with disco is meeting your customer where they are. One is from an awareness play. The other one's actually the conversion play, right? So when you think of meeting where they are, okay, they're on social, they're on Meta, they're scrolling out through their feed and they see an ad. Okay, are they becoming aware or learning more about the brand at the moment? Absolutely, right? Are they necessarily in the mode or like mindset to buy at that moment? Maybe, maybe not, right? And that's what gets me so excited about that is the concept of introducing customers when they didn't even they least expected it. It's where they weren't intending to shop from your brand. They were shopping another brand and they found your brand, making every single transaction an incremental conversion, a conversion that was not intended to happen in the first place. And that's just because you chose to meet them where they are, but also meet them when they actually were in the mindset to shop.
Could you please briefly describe how the system behind or the algorithm, let's say machine learning, etc., works? Like, and of course, what inputs should the brand enter? Like, of course, I think it's like category or what else? How does it work for brands?
Yeah. So think of this, for every one of the 1,000 brands in the network, we have live customer profiles of how that customer has shopped from every one of the 1,000 other, right? So we would know when a customer has shopped from 3 different baby stores, baby brands, and then a maternity brand, right? And then maybe some nursery, right? We understand this customer profile based on how this customer has shopped, right? And so we identify, yes, she's a mom for sure. She's a mom that recently had a baby by virtue of her shopping behavior across these 1,000 brands, right? That's something that Meta currently cannot do, right? Meta is doing it based on the data points that they're collecting. It's extremely powerful in what they're doing over there, but we are actually looking at live shopping profiles across these 1,000 brands for each individual customer. And then saying, hey, using machine learning, we're taking those data points and saying, you know what, this customer is going to be the perfect fit and most likely to shop from this brand. So this customer bought something from a baby brand. Let's serve them up maybe some nursery furniture. Let's serve them up some dolls. Let's serve them up some toys. Let's serve them up certain things that would most likely resonate with that customer. So there's 2 sides of disco, right? There's the concept of you as an advertiser can come in and say, hey, I want my brand to show up on the post-purchase confirmations of the other 1,000 brands on the network. When you do that, you have the option to choose your CPA, right? We typically would say, hey, what's your CPA on Meta? If you were to say that is, $75, put your CPA on disco maybe at a 20% discount to that, right? And in that process, you'll see that you're going to not only be able to have a fixed CAC and choosing your CPA in that process, but then you're also going to be driving high value potential customers. Because at the end of the day, you and I have talked about before, first order profitability is a really hard thing. If anything, brands are barely breaking even on that first purchase. So the real conversation is the LTV. Like, how much is that customer going to buy over time? Well, guess what? Disco, by having seen all the order data for that customer profile from the other 1,000 brands in the network, we already know that this particular customer is a high LTV customer with every single brand that they shop, which means we're able to be predictive of driving the right kind of customer to that funnel. So that's the advertising play, right? In exchange, we also offer you the opportunity to be a publisher. In other words, showing the disco feed on your post-purchase to the other 1,000 brands on the network, right? So that's kind of like the give and exchange. This is the concept of brands are all fighting tooth and nail on Meta, in bidding, in every other channel, acquisition channel. So it's just a bidding war, right? Whereas disco is the only acquisition channel where it says, hey, brands, let's work together to all reduce CAC in that process, make CAC predictive and fixed in the process.
I know you recently started working at the company, so no pressure on the stats you might not know already, or probably you do. But do you know more or less what the the opt-in rate is, like the average opt-in rate for when an ad is shown on the thank you page? Do you know that, for example?
Yeah. So when a brand is shown on a thank you page, like there's a few things that'll impact whether or not that brand is served up on a thank you page, right? One is the customer can control, one is part of the algorithm, right? First part is when we talk about the algorithm, again, this is our machine learning about the customer profile, understanding is this customer most likely to be a high quality customer and most likely to convert when that brand is, when they're shown the feed. The other part is what the customer can control and say, hey, listen, the higher you set, it is like an auction, and right? The higher you set your CPA, the more the algorithm will reward you too. So it's a combination of understanding I'm willing to pay X amount for your acquisition, which is fairly similar to Meta. The only difference is we're also serving up the customers that we know based on their actual live shopping behavior. And so when you think about what that instantly brings, we instantly bring a 1% to 2% incremental revenue lift. Why do we call it incremental? Is because every single customer was not intending to shop that brand when they buy. And then more importantly, the difference is in Meta, you're going to be paying no matter what. Regardless of your performance on Meta, you're going to be paying to get your ad in front of those eyeballs, right? Whereas with Disco, you only pay that acquisition cost if that customer buys. You
Right.
pay nothing. You pay literally $0. So even if you do get served up for 10,000 impressions and nobody buys, you just got 10,000 free impressions. You still had an awareness play that took effect. I mean, you're not paying anything if there's no conversion that's driven.
I think that, of course, brands that are smart about this, at least I think of, right? That brands that are smart about this, they can even, because you tell them, I mean, Disco tells them where the person is coming from, right? The brand. So we can use it to build partnerships, because some partnerships might be straightforward or obvious, like, oh yeah, they bought from brand A. I know brand A's founder, so we already have a relationship or not, but I know they will buy. But some others might not be that straightforward. I know you might see, I don't know, incoming purchases from a certain brand every single month or with a regular cadence, and probably you can take that further. I don't know if you have any cases like those or not, but yeah, it's a good thing to do.
1,000%. I think what you saw a lot in 2000, pretty aggressively in 2023, and a continuation of that in 2024 was a lot of brand collabs, right? When you say brand collabs, you're talking about two different brands that decide to do some kind of product collaboration, collection collaboration, with the hope of joining the overlapping audiences and introducing new audiences into the funnel of both brands going two ways, right? So collabs obviously are huge. That's a really cool part about Disco, is that because all the brands are working together, you would be able to go in and look at, hey, brand A drove me 14 conversions. Brand B drove me 88 conversions. Brand C, look at my customer overlap between my brand and their brand. So typically brands are guessing with these collabs. Hey, I think I should be collabing with this brand. I think it could be interesting. Here, you would actually say, wow, look at our overlapping customer base here. There actually is a collab to be had, right? So you have a data play, right? And that's the whole other story is just the data play. The mass of order data that we're collecting across 8,000 brands. Listen, the reason why the brand is twice as powerful as it was this time last year is because we just have so many more brands in the network since then. And it's a network effect, right? It's a network effect. As we get to 1,500 brands, the network becomes even more powerful. That is 500 more brands where we see live customer data happening for all of those brands, right? So the quality of machine learning gets better over time. The supply, in order for brands to be shown up on more relatable thank you pages, that's increasing over the course of time. So it's a network effect.
Yeah. So all of your take, I love your take on the following. Actually, this starts with you, because I remember to this day, like if it was yesterday, a post you published, I don't know, earlier this year about, the timeline, like before the pandemic, like the evolution of e-commerce, iOS 13, how brands evolved and reacted to every single thing. And it really took note. And I even told many people about it because I found it fascinating. And whenever I interview brands here on the pod, I find that the most successful are doing the basic stuff. And I know this is a thing many people say, but I actually see it here. Whenever I chat with a brand here or even clients, you see that the most successful brands are checking all the boxes that don't have to do only with meta ads. Because even for the most successful brands, at least I speak with, they even say here in the pod, like John Rowan at Bottlebox, they are a huge brand, and they say, to us, like, we want to diversify, but the number one is meta. Still the number one is meta. So most brands are, trapped in what other channel can we leverage. When they think about that, they think Google, TikTok, as we said before, but they never tap into things like Disco, Tapcart, why not? And also the non-scalable, probably all the stuff or analogical stuff, if that's a word in English, my apologies. So calling your customers, doing things offline. Like I got one founder, for example, they said, we went to Central Park with a sign, they sell bags. They said, ask us about our bags. And we got a lot of like, let's say, they got a lot of word of mouth from me because guess what? These days, even the non-scalable actions can scale because they recorded that with a phone. Everyone has a phone right now and it's all over the place on TikTok, Instagram. But doing that, engaging with customers live, when you do that, or if you do pop-up stores, right? Engaging with customers, oh, this bag had bigger pockets or smaller pockets or thicker or whatever. So that's what probably most brands are missing, the same with calling customers. It's like the basic stuff that everyone seems to be forgetting. And that evolution you said about e-commerce probably talks about that in a way too.
I think you hit on the head. What you're describing right here in a nutshell is the basic 101 of brand building. And so when you think about, back when over the first decade of Shopify's run, right, or maybe first 7 years of Shopify's run, brands are popping up at a solid pace because the barriers were brought down exponentially in order to start a new brand, right? And then when you see Facebook ads, like become when it was new, right? It's like basically a money printer, right? For those that were evaluating it as an evergreen channel, you could essentially take a $1 bill, make it into a paper airplane, throw it into the sky that comes back as 10, right? And then COVID happened, right? Where COVID completely changed not just the number of brands that were popping up overnight, but you also saw consumer behavior dramatically shift. Everything went online, right? Combine that with Facebook still being a money printer at that same moment, right? Boom, ultimate skyrocketing bull market for all of e-commerce. Every brand, customers are happy, brands are winning, brands are profitable. What this also did, though, is that it was a get rich quick type of mentality that kind of drove us to this, right? Where there were some brands seeing amazing scale, but there was much larger cohort of brands that were kind of just focusing, hyper obsessing on the arbitrage game that could happen with Facebook, right? And brands were built on that notion. It's like click conversion, hyper obsessed. So then when, mid 2021, when iOS 14 took effect, it would literally was an absolute awakening to brands. And initially they're like, hey, why is this drop in conversions taking place? When no, these are the privacy changes that everyone kind of like said, hey, I don't know if this is really going to mean anything. No, it did. It completely tanked conversions, tanked ad performance over the next 6 to 12 months. And I don't think we need to relive the pain of 2021 with iOS 14. But what it really did is kind of separated the brands that had obsessed with the direct response, right? Direct response is always going to be a large part of ad strategy, no question about it, right? That's not changing anytime soon. But what happened was brands over-invested, over-exhausted, and over-indexed on direct response. So then when performance waned, you just see those customer acquisition costs going through the roof because everyone's kind of guessing what's gonna work. iOS 15 hits, iOS 16 hits, iOS 17 hits. Everything is becoming incrementally harder over the course of time. And what's the end outcome? Customer acquisition costs skyrocketing over that period too. So then you have this 2023 where every start of 2023, everything really came crashing down. You saw this in e-com on the brand side. You saw the trickle down effect to the e-com SaaS supporting them too, was profitability just got murdered, right? Profitability was almost non-existent. In fact, probably about 50% of brands on Shopify, on all of Shopify, could be described as zombie brands. In other words, they still exist. They haven't outright failed, but they are literally operating in kind of this no man's land of zero profitability, break-even status, and kind of in this almost give up type of mode, right? A wind down type of mode without an actual cataclysmic type of failure moment. So what you're seeing here, what you just described, like there's certain brands that are just doing it really well, are the ones that continue to say, hey, listen, Meta will continue to be our largest channel, and we're okay with that. We know that Meta has driven us a certain level of outcome, but we're also seeing the CAC, the lower LTVs, the tougher ability to be profitable with Meta acquired customers. And we need to diversify those channels. True Classic is an absolute expert in having done this, right? They invest in literally every single new acquisition channel that's out there for the very reason of knowing that Meta is our primary, but it's not the end all be all. If we were to fast forward 5, 10, 15 years, where will it be? The answer is we don't really know. We just know customer acquisition costs will be much higher than they are today. And it's prudent for us to diversify accordingly, right? And that's where I kind of spent my entire career, right? Is preaching the concept of diversifying those channels. That's saying we're okay with Meta being primary channel, but it's prudent for a brand, if you're focused on profitability, to look at alternative channels that drive incremental revenue, that drive the right kind of customers into the funnel, and ultimately are going to be the ones that are responsible for that profitability.
We need to continue that post that you published earlier this year that we were talking about. What good 2025 said?
2025 is, well, I would view 2024 as the bottom in e-commerce, which is a good thing, right? We've had the unwinding take place where people were at first in denial that, oh my gosh, no, our ad performance is going down. This can't be happening. This can't be real. To, oh my gosh, this is not changing anytime soon. We need to start making changes. Those changes included cuts in budget, cuts in tech, cuts in the size of your team. It forced brands to be in a mindset of, we need to do more with less. Well, doing more with less took 6 to 12 months to put into effect. That period was 2024. So that's why I call it the bottom. 2025 is why I'm so incredibly bullish about 2025. It's the first year in e-commerce history where I would say every single brand on the planet has their feet fully on the ground and is looking at the world through a clear lens, right? Where they've done what they need to cut costs, cut spend, and drive profitability. All focus is not on revenue now. It's focused on bottom line profitability. They've already implemented the changes to get them there. And 2025 will be the first full year where they're operating from a fresh slate, that mindset. So now the question is, what do they do, right? And ultimately, few major themes that are going to dominate 2025. Number one, customer experience, investing in your customer, understanding how to develop a closer relationship with that customer, and in turn, which is going to drive higher LTV in that process. And as you know, I preach LTV is the only path to that profitability, right? So investing in your customer. Number two, evaluating alternative app channels, right? When you think about the concept of acquiring customers, all conversions are not created equal. There are certain channels that drive higher quality customers in the funnel than others. And so this is going to be the year that brands are going to be much more experimental with alternative ad platforms and channels than ever before.
Do you have an example? An experimental ad channel like Reddit?
There's a few that come to mind. Number one, TikTok Shops, I think, is definitely in its infancy, although you could argue that CAC is getting pretty out of control there. Number two, AppLovin. AppLovin is doing some really, really exciting things right now. For those that don't know what AppLovin is focused on, you know, all the games that exist on the App Store. And you see those pop-ups, you know, the Wordles, the Scrabbles of the world, and those ads that pop up in game. Well, that entire ad network is AppLovin. So there's a lot of brands that are giving that one a look. They recently set foot in e-commerce just in the last 3-4 months. I got to give the selfish plug with Disco. Disco has a larger ad network than it ever has before. My job as far as joining Disco was to increase the supply, increase the amount of supply, the number of brands that can provide supply to the network. So brands can say, hey, listen, I'm spending $10,000 a month on acquisition with Disco right now. I want to be able to up that to 100,000 because I'm seeing much higher ROAS over here. My job is to be able to go find that supply, and looking at non-D2C, non-Shopify ecosystem of brands and networks where we can serve our post-purchase experience on a non-Shopify feed in order to create more supply, right?
Those brands are wondering, how much volume can Disco provide them, like percentage-wise of their overall number of orders or revenue? How much volume do you think that they can see from coming in from Disco?
I like to say that Disco is going to drive 1% to 2% of incremental revenue, right? So not a huge amount of when you look at an initial volume per se, but we're going to drive 20% of your profit, right? Because we're going to be one of the lowest acquisition channels that a brand has, where every single acquisition is incremental. And most importantly, every one of those customers that comes in the funnel, fast forward the clock 12 months, and they would be your highest spending customers than any of your Meta acquired customers. In fact, Disco acquired customer has a 249% higher LTV than a Meta acquired customer, right?
Do you have a guess why? Or do you know why?
Because it's the only platform on the planet that has the scale of looking at the order data of all those customer profiles. We're not just being predictive on which customers we think will buy your product. We already know every single shopper profile. We understand where they have shopped and what kind of customers they've been to the other brands in the network. And so as a result, we're not operating just based on prediction. We just know this particular customer profile, every brand they join, they just end up spending a lot. And we drive those kind of customers into the funnel. And this is why, a Disco acquired customer is just going to end up seeing an LTV to CAC that runs circles around any other alternative channel.
You mentioned TikTok shops. I wanted to ask, I know it's a thing, it's in many people's mouth, as we speak. And of course, for 2025, I think it's one of the platforms many want to explore. You said something about it already, so I wanted you to expand on that. And if you want all your thoughts on the platform, or I don't know, maybe experience or the experience of brands that you are in touch with, what do you think that this channel will do for brands in 2025? Or is already doing as well?
I think you're going to hear me preach anything that is non-meta. Now, listen, I am not anti-meta, right? I am not anti-meta. Please know that. I'm just anti-brands being over-indexed and over-reliant on any one single acquisition channel. So I still see brands having a lot of reluctance on TikTok Shop. There's an increasing focus on whether or not it's going to generate the return that people expect. And TikTok knows the power that they have. Customer acquisition costs are going to run higher quite quickly, right? That's what we know, right? So what I would say is if you haven't tried TikTok shops, you absolutely should, right? I can think of, some solid operators in the space that have had a tremendous level of success with it. But more importantly, it's a diversification from Meta. I think the brands that are seeing the most excitement from TikTok are the ones that see that were previously 95% of their acquisition was coming from Meta, right? I think at the end of the day, it's a disservice for a brand to not experiment with the channel, right? Every brand is going to have varying success, whether it's TikTok, whether it's Disco, whether it's AppLovin, whether it's any other acquisition channel. Every brand is going to have their own varying degrees of success. The key is trying all of them because, again, it just reduces that reliance on Meta as being that sole source of top of funnel.
personally love about it, and it's interesting you mentioned something similar. The decentralization, is that a thing? Decentralization, um, you know, uh, everything digital in 2024. 2023 was a part of it, but for example, I posted on LinkedIn a few weeks ago that I got 2 discovery calls from with brands that discovered my agency through ChatGPT.
Mhm.
Asked ChatGPT about agencies in the cover space, blah blah blah, and they found me, right? So many, I know my wife searches on Instagram, not on Google. Many people are searching on ChatGPT or using ChatGPT as their search engine. Some people even feel, oh, we were talking about, meeting customers where they are. And some people don't want to see a list of links when they search for something. Of course, it's still the number one option for most people, but maybe people like, they just want the answers, right? That's why even Google is playing with AI and giving you the answers, right? When you look for something or even when you start typing with something. So we see the same decentralization with different things. So TikTok is going for, search. TikTok ads, the search ads. So before, the only high-intent search platform when it comes to ads was Google, not even Meta, right? But now TikTok is going for the ads. It's going for Amazon as well. TikTok Shop is really similar to Amazon. Of course, so this is like everything is being decentralized. And same with influencers. Every brand is planning their strategy for Black Friday, Cyber Monday. I know by the time this airs, it will be over now, but you know, people, many brands forget about planning their influencers or affiliate strategy, right? So I think TikTok Shop will be a bridge for many brands to get started with influencers, affiliates, because everything is getting decentralized as we speak, right? It's not Meta only. TikTok will play probably a big role. We have a lot of, case studies at the agency of high ticket, products for ads, not for the shop yet. So TikTok is not only for teenagers. I know many people say that, but we experienced that firsthand for cheap products, right? So this decentralization is happening. And I think it's going to be even, um, let's say, bigger in 2020.
Could not agree more. Could not agree more. I think when you think about the concept of, I love this word you're using, decentralization, right? And I'm going to use that. I don't know where, but I'm going to use that, right? Decentralization is just another word of saying de-risking, right? Right? Reducing risk in whatever it is you're doing, right? Anytime you have hyper focus, overemphasis on one channel, I think I wrote this before. Warren Buffett always said, put all your eggs in one basket and then just watch that basket very closely. That makes sense in his context, but it does not make sense when it comes to brand and advertising strategy. At the end of the day, brands that have invested in the customer are the ones that see those long run results. Those that have over invested in any one single acquisition channel have always seen diminishing returns over the course of time, right? So I could not agree more on this concept of decentralization.
In probably with Warren Buffett's analogy, I would say that the egg in the basket is the brand focus, what the niche they chose, the mission they chose. That's their one thing instead of doing, I don't know, instead of having 1,000 businesses or 10 businesses, they grow one and they go all in until they want to grow the second one, etc. But then there's different means for that end, in this case, Meta for customer acquisition, etc. So I think that it's not bad to decentralize how you acquire customers as long as you keep the focus on the brand, the mission, etc. Until you're ready, like Upbeat, for example. I know you know Ronak Shah and Ash, etc. I had the pleasure of interviewing him a few years ago as well. And I know they started Upbeat and they grew it up to, I don't know, 35 million. And then only then, based on what I know, I think at least started building the other companies, Kofi over Cardio and the other ones, right? And now they own multiple ones. But back then, I think based on what I know, it was only Upbeat, right? And they were focused there, but then they were in a position to do more. Why not?
They're absolute legends of what they do. They built an incredible platform. I think part of it comes down to very few founders are willing to put themselves out very transparently on what's working, what's not working. And they did that early on. They were one of the early adopters of very transparent brand building in public. And as a result, people developed a tremendous level of trust in them. They looked up to them. They really like respected everything that they shared. And I think Ron and Ash, what they've done so incredibly well is made a platform out of it to help evangelize various solution strategies throughout the rest of e-commerce. And so, yes, very few can operate with such transparency with their own brand. And then on top of that, as a result of the success, leverage that into a really scaled, successful platform that is a separate idea in and of itself as well. So they've done.
Before we go, I wanted to ask you a last question, related to what we were talking about recently about, Upbeat and some other founders. I mentioned first, Ronak Shah and Ash Bhawani, Upbeat, before mentioning the company name. The same with Brock Malhotra's Frostbody and many other founders. They have something in common, and it's that they have built their brand. I remember Brock Malhotra recently posted something like, and again, I used it a lot because it really, I really found it interesting and relevant for many founders, to get themselves out there. He also, for those who don't know who Brock Malhotra is, he's the founder of Frostbody, an 8-figure brand, very successful. The guy said, I wake up every single morning thinking about what will be the highest lever action for my business. And for now, that's TikTok, recording TikToks. So that's what I will do all day long. In fact, he recently went on vacation with his family. He posted that on LinkedIn. I'm not stalking them, I promise. And then he posted that he was recording video TikTok on the beach. So that's how far founders are willing to go for their brand. But that's also, extended to personal branding. You have built an amazing personal brand. So I wanted to ask you why you decided to do that and what are the results from that. And last, what would you say to all of those founders listening to this or watching this right now that are hesitant about getting out there on behalf of their brand?
Wow. Yeah. I mean, LinkedIn and building a personal brand has undoubtedly been one of the largest contributors to my personal success. I'm so thankful for that LinkedIn journey. Candidly, when it started, though, I actually had no idea what kind of outcome it would generate. I actually did it with the sole focus and desire to say, hey, I want to get in front of my prospect. I want to start talking to a number of brands. I want to understand what really makes them tick. What are the challenges that they're experiencing? Every other channel, obviously, every role I've had was been in a sales function with e-commerce, SaaS companies. And so my goal was to understand what makes these brands tick. What are they suffering from in challenges? What are areas I could potentially solve? Every other channel out there has not allowed for that feedback loop except for LinkedIn. And so that's the why behind why I started it. For a while, it was posting. It felt like crickets. It felt like nobody's listening, nobody's watching. And I kind of just kept doing it anyway, right? It felt at times, and people even joked and almost made fun of me at times. They're like, Neal, you're saying some cool things, but it sounds like you're screaming in an empty room or screaming into a pillow, right? And kind of ignored that, and I just kept going. Like, I just kept saying, listen, I think if you do the small things every day, that they're eventually going to add up to something positive, right? Nobody goes to the gym and has a perfect body day 2 or day 3, right? It requires showing up every single day, doing the small things that don't yield immediate results, which is the overall desire, whatever that desire is, to be coming from a pure place in the heart. And my place in the heart was just understanding what makes brands tick, what are the problems I could potentially solve, and being able to put myself in a place where I could do that. So, personal brand building, a lot of people think that personal brand building is just about posting on LinkedIn. It's not, right? Personal brand building is the concept of developing trust with the people that you want to engage with. Trust comes 2 ways. Number one, it comes from thought leadership. I know something, I want to share something, I want to teach something, so I'm going to post it on LinkedIn. But most people, like many people, to kind of just stop right there, right? The other part is actual relationships being built. Going and seeking out those relationships, engaging with other people's content, engaging with founders that you really want to get to know and work with, that's the part that actually takes a lot more time, energy, bandwidth, thought process over the course of your day. And that's what allows you to build those relationships to develop that trust. So you have thought leadership that combines with actual relationship building that makes for that personal brand. It's not one or the other. And I think many people kind of forget the second part. Hey, in order to be like, go to a cocktail party and get to know everyone, you actually have to go to them and basically work the room and be, engage with each one of them. And the goal of learning what makes them tick, right? And so I think that's been a large part of my success. All my success, I would say, is attributed to the desire to genuinely serve, but then also LinkedIn has been a huge accelerator for all of that in that desire.
This was a great episode, another great episode. So I wanted to thank you for being here today. I will keep going for hours because it's always interesting to talk to you. So for those who don't follow you, don't know much how to stay in touch with you, could you please tell them where to do that and where to do the same with Pixel?
Yes. As you know, you can find me on LinkedIn all day, every day. Find me on LinkedIn. So excited about the new chapter that's at Disco as well. So you'll find me posting quite a bit about kind of all the learnings, all the exciting things that are happening over there. But then more importantly, you're also going to see the level of love and desire that I have working with brands in the Shopify ecosystem. These are some of the most incredible human beings on the planet that are building some incredible organizations that are doing it on their backs, putting their heart and soul in the front driver's seat of everything they're doing. And there's no better job in the world than to be able to learn and interact.
As always, for everyone listening to this, the show notes will be at the DTCinsider.com. Once you find the episodes, you will find everything, including the social handles and, of course, Disco website. Neal, it was a pleasure to have you again here on the pod. Thank you so much.
Hey, Brian, you're a legend. Thanks so much, man.
This episode was brought to you by BSR Digital. We help DTC brands grow through paid ads and email marketing campaigns. If you'd like us to help your business grow, head on over to bsrdigital.com and schedule a call with us.